So I talked to you, Ron.
Live downtown, and we are on with the Morning Brew today. I'm Larry Aarons with Aaron Muffaletto. This gentleman probably needs no introduction. He's been on KOAT TV as the chief medical correspondent for many years. He's been practicing medicine in our community for, what, 46 years now?
No, not quite, but a long time.
A long time, about as long as I've been doing media.
Yeah, right. No, that's right.
He's the best known doc in town. There's no doubt about it. Dr. Barry Ramo is with us, and it's good to see you.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
delighted to be here. It's very kind of you to have us on.
What you and your colleagues are doing is very interesting, and starting on the 12th of February, a series of events at the Kimo Theater, all having to do with health. And Aaron, I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, this is, I mean, there's nothing.
Well, I want to see you there, Aaron. This is, I think this is the first
great.
one is going to be very exciting. Actually, we're doing 3 different ones in February, March, and April. And the first one is on women and cancer, which is an enormously important and interesting subject. I think there's we read about it and we hear about it, but there really is a changing way of thinking about cancer that I certainly, as a cardiologist, didn't really appreciate until I talked to the 3 experts, and I'm having outstanding people from both from University of New Mexico and the Presbyterian Hospital Cancer Center, James Kanowitz and Carolyn Muller and Melanie Royce, all really outstanding people, OBGYN gynecologists. So that's going to be the opening one, and then we'll talk about heart disease and we'll talk about diabetes.
So this is a series called Spotlight on Health, and then you're going to serve as the MC moderator.
Sort of the Larry Aarons of this program, right? You know,
I guess so.
Or Aaron. You know, the same thing. You just, and as you know, it's fascinating.
It is.
You get to do it all the time and talk to all these people, but I found that in talking to these experts that you learn so much. And of course, if you do this job right, you have to prepare for it and you're ready, just like you. You don't come on here and say,
sure.
Duh. You know,
Now, are people going to be able to ask questions? Is there going to be a Q&A session
right,
as well?
the way we're working it, the way I've structured it is that they'll be in 3 parts. So there'll be 20 minutes of presentation where we have a dialogue and then 10 minutes of questions. Usually you make people write down their questions. Otherwise, as Larry and you know, if you let somebody call in with a question, it takes up the entire time.
Right.
So we're going to have them write down the questions. But, you know, we'll start out first with the idea of what are we talking about when we're talking about cancer? Because cancer is really different in the way we think about it now. You know, the general public thinks about cancer as you go in and you take as many cells out as you can and take care of it. And what they're finding, for example, with breast cancer, that when someone has cancer, often these cells circulate around the body and they can go back to the tissue. So that's why, for example, if they do a lumpectomy on somebody, unless you do radiation, those cells pop up in other areas of the breast. So it's very important to have a different concept of cancer, and the treatment is different. So we're going to focus on that. The first part really is why do people get this cancer? What can you do to prevent it? You know, I think this is really important. For example, yourself, what kind of lifestyle do you have? Do you think you need to prevent breast cancer?
Well, exercise is important.
Right.
I know that. Eating habits.
Getting enough sleep.
Yep.
Sleep.
And so it's really weight is important, and because of the fact that being overweight, there's an increase in estrogen, which seems to be a real factor in that. Of course, for postmenopausal women, again, estrogen, hormone replacement therapy, or progesterone, these different cancers are different. And when you say breast cancer, there are multiple different kinds that people need to understand.
Yeah.
I like how you've framed it too. You're learning along with everybody else because this isn't your specialty.
Yeah, no.
So as a host, you're having to get up to speed on something.
No, you really do learn a lot. And as you know, I do about 600 segments a year. It's a huge amount of television. And so I learn, people ask me why I keep doing it. Part of it is just so interesting. And being able to explain it to people so that they can understand it, I think is really something that you work on and you work on. And it's as if I'm talking to you or to you, you're one of my patients. That's how I look at the cameras. It's very personal. And you say, well, you know, would my patient really understand this when we're talking about it?
Yeah. So is one of the things that you're going to be talking about as well, like the breakthroughs in breast cancer, and maybe just if I'm a patient who maybe not a patient, but I have a family with cancer, and I want
Absolutely.
to find out, all right, well, what do I need to do? Do I need to start talking to my doctor? And you hear all these stories about women getting lumpectomies, just in case.
Right.
Is that the right idea for me?
Well,
That kind of
Angelina
thing.
Jolie really popularized the sort of,
Yes.
not, I hate to use the word popularized, but people really began to focus on this. Here is a woman who had a certain type of breast cancer, and then she went ahead because there's a high risk in her particular
Yeah.
The
situation.
gene in her family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
History.
That's
Which is
exactly
rare,
right,
but
Larry.
yeah.
And so she had her ovaries removed as well, and that's something that women need to know about. Yeah, what we will be talking about is the latest treatment, because there's some, for example, a drug called Herceptin, which is a very exciting drug, very effective drug for certain kinds of breast cancer. Not every single kind. They have to have a certain receptor type that this works for. But it is fascinating, but the field is expanding so quickly and rapidly, but we've got the experts there to really give us the information. I'm very excited about having a chance to talk to them.
Yeah.
But also, I might tell you, this is Heart Month.
Oh, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so we could talk about taking care of your heart. I want everybody to know that February 12th is when this is happening.
Right, at
It's-
Kimo Theater.
Right, at
And you have to get tickets.
Right, and they can get them there, and it's very
Sure.
inexpensive. I think it's $6 for adults, $3 for
Oh,
seniors.
okay.
And we're having a bunch. We've invited medical students and pharmacy students. It's a big theater. It's absolutely glorious, and this crew
Oh, it's
is
a
going
beautiful
to be there
Yeah.
to film us, which I'm very excited about. And so they'll show the segments, but there'll be 3 segments. Each one is different. One is about therapy, one is about prevention, and one is about really understanding what the disease is and how women can understand it and what they need to do to prevent it, and if they have it, what the options are for therapy.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a great time to have it because I know as a woman, I'm hearing a big flux of more women having cancer right now, and it's kind of scary. And no, this is great.
No, it
So-
does seem like, when someone actually, this, remember when Katie Couric had her colonoscopy
Yes.
on television?
Yeah.
There were a number of colon cancers discovered, because a lot of times women will hear about this and they'll do a self-exam or they'll go to their doctor and they'll discover something. And so in a way it's very good because it gets people to get health care.
Yeah, and that's another important thing to have. So.
Absolutely, yeah, I think that's exactly right.
You talked about new treatment of cancer. What's new in the field of cardiology? What do we know
Well-
now about the heart and taking care of it?
Well, I think one of the things that people are always amazed about, and we were here, you were on vacation, but I talked about Project Heart Start. One of
I
the
remember
problems
that.
is sudden cardiac arrest, and that is the fact that about 375,000 people die every year from a sudden cardiac arrest. Many of those people don't have heart attacks. So think of this. If you have an artery that's like a 8-lane highway, and along the highway there's a snowdrift, but the snowdrift is filled with active material, it's filled with fat. What happens in the artery is that fat swells up like a pimple in a period of 24 hours or even less, and it ruptures. And when it ruptures, it attracts clotting material and suddenly shuts off the artery. And that's why 50% of the time the first sign of a heart attack is either sudden death or a heart attack, no symptoms preceding it. So what we're focusing on as a cardiologist or as all doctors is try to stabilize that plaque. And that's why you hear about inflammation. What we try to do is cut down inflammation. For example, I don't know if you take a statin. Every cardiologist takes a statin, but to keep your cholesterol in control. That minimizes inflammation. And I think that's one of the reasons that it cuts down heart attacks, not just lowering your cholesterol, but also having that effect.
Now, personally, I don't have a cholesterol problem, but I do have a low good cholesterol problem.
Your HDL is low.
It's low, yeah. I'm
Okay,
at the
so
bottom end.
very often people like that who have that, we've had a whole bunch of drugs that raise HDL. H is happy, L is lousy, if you
Yeah.
can't remember. Is that, number one is exercise. There is no drug that effectively changes what happens to you. We've got drugs that will raise your HDL to the ceiling, but it doesn't change your outcome.
Interesting.
And in fact, it caused more heart attacks. So the key to your situation is a diet which is reduced in simple sugars, anything that's white. You try to stay away from bread, rice, pasta, and potatoes. Reduce the amount of that. And of course, you look like you're in good shape, but you exercise regularly. That will raise HDL. And a little alcohol doesn't hurt. But we don't, alcohol does raise your HDL, so it may not be
Well,
bad.
there you go.
In moderation, you can drink 2 drinks a day. You can have 1 for health.
Yeah.
Dr. Barry Ramo hosting this event. It's called Spotlight on Health. The first event will be at the Kimo Theater Wednesday, February 12th, 7:30 p.m. Dr. Ramo has invited 3 colleagues in the field of women's breast cancer and treatment. He will be hosting, and there'll be 3 events all throughout the spring. And this is a great idea.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on the show.
Well, you are delightful. It was nice to
thank
see
you
both
for
of you.
being
Thank you
here.
for supporting this, and we hope to have a good crowd. I think people will learn a lot.
And happy Heart Month.
Oh, thank you. That's
Happy Heart
right.
Month,
That's right.
everybody.
Well, I'm not going to eat any of this stuff. That's right. The white stuff there.
Hey, Dr. Barry Ramo here on the show with us today, The Morning Brew, and we'll be back in a moment.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you so much.